Welcome everyone to Tales from the 90s. This is our 30th episode. Can't believe we're 30 of them in. And I've even missed a couple weeks. But anyway, we're going back to August of 1994. So let's go.
Tales from the 90s never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins, where every tale begins. Tales from the crypt, marathons, wrestling wars and morning yawns. Play kickball in the street, man those days can't be beat. Tales from the 90s never die.
Yeah, 30 episodes. That's crazy to think. It's been an evolving process, as you guys have probably seen. I added a few segments, took a couple out, was doing commercial watch-alongs at one point as part of it, but it didn't really kind of fit with the format because I had to stop in the middle or record before or after. And for those that actually listen to this on Spotify, you couldn't see the commercials anyway, and sometimes the audio was crap. So anyway, I'll do commercial watch-alongs later on, their own videos. But anyway, there's supposed to be a bonus episode I was supposed to do this month. I'm still almost got ready to where I can record. It's just between being sick and eye infections and everything else, it's taking forever. But it's still the month of May, so I still have a chance to get it out. Anyway, that one is my top 50 Saturday morning cartoons / TV shows. Just encapsulating, it goes from the show had to be on the air, on Saturday mornings from just the time I was born until the year 2000 is when I kind of put the cutoff, because I wasn't watching Saturday morning cartoons then. Truthfully, I wasn't watching around like 98, 99 because had other interests as a teenager. But if I seen them and I liked them, I'll put it on the list. Anyway, it's a top 50. My rankings, you guys probably won't agree or have other things. And G.I. Joe, everybody thinks G.I. Joe is a Saturday morning cartoon. Technically, it wasn't. It was a weekday, afternoon cartoon. So that won't make the list, even though if it would have been, it would have been high up. But I love G.I. Joe. Just if anybody sees the list, why ain't G.I. Joe on there? Because technically, it wasn't a Saturday morning cartoon on one of the, the networks. But anyway, that's that. And this week, you'll see the Friday Night Karaoke's back on Friday, and should be a Jackasses of the Week that I'll be putting out. It'll be really interesting, calling some people out. I have fun ranting on that one. But on this one, it's all about the nostalgia of the time period. And I pick a random month and year to do from the 90s, so we don't ever go in order. Last week I was in the 97. This week we're 94. But we're going to get started now. This was my 5th trip going actually back through 1994 on the podcast. Last one was back on episode 14. We went to June. And this time I was 10 years old and just getting ready for the 5th grade. Because back then, August is you're getting ready for school. You're not actually in school then. Nowadays, you start the first week of August, and half these schools around here, their air conditioning breaks down, so people are complaining. And then the old people go on there and oh, back in our day, we didn't have it. Yeah, well, back in our day, we didn't go to school until September. So, yeah, it was still a little hot then, but nothing like August. Shouldn't have kids in school in August anyway. Let them enjoy the summer. It's hot. Let them be at the pool. Not around here. They close the pool down as soon as school starts up. Because they don't want people skipping school. Well, just ban them or don't open the pool till school's out. Anyway, all that to say, yeah, I was getting ready for 10th grade. It was my last month of summer at this time back in August. Always a time, it's we got a whole month left. But then, as the weeks go on, you're oh no, school's coming. And as you get older, you dread that more. When you're younger, oh, I can't wait to go back to school. Yay, I get to go play with my friends. Later on, especially in middle school and high school, it's oh no, not this time of year. But on this, if you've never seen this podcast before, I ramble a lot, as you see. But if I keep looking this way, I'm looking at my layout. I don't have a script. I don't write word for word. I just write some, I type down some facts so that way I remember things, factual things, and then I just kind of take off from there. talk about different topics. One of my favorite things, if you don't know me, I'm involved in professional wrestling. I'm an announcer and do some video work now and then, and I also play the music. I've probably done about everything there is in wrestling. I've even wrestled a match. If you want to see that abomination, or two of them. Well, one of them I'm really proud of. The other one was a Rumble where I didn't know what I was doing. Thought I was going to die 700 times in that match. But anyway, wrestling was a huge part of my life back then, obviously. At this time, I actually wasn't watching ECW. It wouldn't come until middle school where I discover it, because it was on very late night with... why is this microphone shaking so much? I don't know. Anyway, one of my friends at school actually introduced me to ECW, and then I stayed up late to watch it, because back then I wasn't staying up late. I'm trying to get the sleep out of my eyes, and now it's if I go to bed before 4, it's strange these days. And I'm usually up around 10 or 11 half the time. But anyway, ECW did their first ever Hardcore Heaven show. And this is back before ECW had pay-per-views. This was when they were just doing... They would do their... it was kind of like a big event each month. Or sometimes they have it more than once each month. But then they would take that and put it... break it up into like 2 or 3 different TV episodes. Anyway, this was August 13th at the ECW Arena, which was their famous arena in Philadelphia. Jason, the world's sexiest man, I don't think he was calling himself that at the time, but that's who he became. He defeated the ECW TV champion Mikey Whipwreck to win the title. And Sabu defeated Too Cold Scorpio. Of course, a couple weeks ago, Sabu passed away, sadly. I've said it before, my favorite ECW wrestler, not just because he died, but I've said it since the 90s. But the main event was a match between Cactus Jack and Terry Funk that ended in a no contest after the Public Enemy interfered. Now, this is a famous match that they've showed clips of it forever. It's the famous one where, Terry and Mick Foley were obviously feuding, but Public Enemy, by the way, air conditioner kicking on alert. The Public Enemy interfered and knocked, basically beat them both up, ended in a no contest, but then they were fighting back. So I believe it was Terry Funk that asked a fan for a chair, and then here comes one chair, 2 chair, and all of a sudden it just starts raining these steel chairs, everybody throwing them into the ring. The Public Enemy were completely buried under them. Cactus and Terry got buried under them. Joey Styles had to leave his announced place up in the, he was up in the, I think they call it the Raven's Nest, or I don't know if it was called that or not. Anyway, he had to leave there and tell the fans to stop throwing chairs, because I don't know how anybody didn't die that night. But they showed that clip forever on there where just the chairs started launching. A lot of iconic stuff from ECW actually happened in this month. So, I'll get into another one in a minute here, but yeah, that was that night. If you ever seen that, it was that crazy night. WCW didn't have a pay-per-view this month, but they had their wasn't every month, it was every few months. They did on TBS the Clash of the Champions, which was like they're kind of their equivalent of the Saturday night's main event. Those eyes burning for some reason. Not an eye infection again. But yeah, they had the Clash of the Champions on August 24th from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Ricky Steamboat defeated WCW US champion Steve Austin to win the title. And besides that being a title change, it's significant because that was actually the last match that Ricky Steamboat would wrestle. He injured his back in the match and wasn't able to wrestle again. I think the next time he wrestled was 2009, whenever he had that match at WrestleMania, that 3-on-1 against Chris Jericho. And then he wrestled a little bit after that, but yeah, just, you don't think you're going to see something significant, and you don't at the time know it, but that's the last time you see Ricky Steamboat wrestle. As a full-time wrestler, anyway. The main event, Ric Flair defeated WCW World Champion Hulk Hogan by countout. I don't know if I've seen this Clash of Champions, so I guarantee there was some bull crap, especially if they're going to let Ric Flair beat Hogan during this time. This was the time period where Hogan was facing Vader in a strap match, and somehow Ric Flair loses the match for Vader, like, Hogan drags Flair around and touches all four corners, and somehow he loses the match for Vader just so Vader don't have to do it because of Hogan. Anyway, I can make a whole podcast about freaking Hulk Hogan. But the other significant thing I want to talk about at ECW, they hosted the NWA World Title Tournament. Now, the NWA, of course, the longest running wrestling organization that had all different organizations within it. It was like a governing body, like you think of it like the NWA is like the United States, and all their promotions are kind of like the individual states. They had one world champion. Well, anyway, the championship had been vacant for a long time after, being with WCW and everything. So anyway, at the ECW Arena on August 27th, they hosted a tournament. And on this show, a non-tournament match, Cactus Jack and Mikey Whipwreck defeated ECW Tag Team Champions the Public Enemy to win the titles. Surprised it wasn't Terry Funk after that episode, but maybe he couldn't wrestle for a while after that. But anyway, the main event of this show is very significant. Shane Douglas won and became NWA World Champion, and then immediately he defeated Too Cold Scorpio. Immediately after, he gave that famous speech that they always talk about, where he's talking about how proud he is and all the people that come before him, and then he throws the belt down and declares himself ECW World Champion, which he hadn't done at the time because ECW is just Philadelphia and New York, those areas. I don't even know if they'd gone into New York then. And at the time, they were still Eastern Championship Wrestling, too. I forgot to mention that. But there was this huge, he threw the NWA belt down. And I think it was him and Paul Heyman were planning that. It was their way to get away from tradition and go their own way. And it actually became, the launching point for ECW as we know it. Soon after, it would be announced that they were becoming Extreme Championship Wrestling. Their titles are world titles, even though PWI magazine didn't recognize it, because to be a world champion, you should travel the world. I don't think ECW ever even went overseas, but as popular as they were on pay-per-view. I still consider them world titles, but not until like 97. But I mean, I'm not no world title claiming expert. Anyway, but yeah, that was a significant event. A couple things that month really shaped the way ECW became, and then they just kind of took off from there, and in 3 years they'd be on pay-per-view, and nobody thought that would ever happen. Speaking of pay-per-view, WWF had their SummerSlam show August 28th from Chicago. Razor Ramon defeated the Intercontinental Champion Diesel to win the title. WWF Champion Bret Hart beat Owen Hart in a steel cage match. That was one of the all-time classic matches. First time I ever seen that was on this DVD I got called Bloodbath, where they had all kinds of different cage matches from wrestling history. That was one of the prominent ones on there, and it's just a really good match. If you've seen their match at WrestleMania 10, obviously they're brothers, they were feuding, so they're going to have good chemistry anyway, but those two never had a bad match. The main event, The Undertaker beat the fake Undertaker. That was that crazy time where Undertaker was taken out at the Royal Rumble, and he ascended up to heaven or whatever it was. And then $1 Million Man announced that we hadn't seen The Undertaker while I bought him off. And then they bring out this, the Underfaker, as they call him, played by Brian Lee, who was actually one of Undertaker's friends. And he got the same tattoos like drawn on. But it was clear it wasn't him. But anyway, the real Undertaker came back, and they had that match at WrestleMania. Everybody's like, oh, it sucked, and the match quality might have sucked, but it was still, it was definitely a spectacle to see. Paul Bearer came out with a real giant urn. And by the way, if you don't know anything about wrestling, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about right now. Hopefully you skip through and not just turned it off. But a couple other significant things that happened. On August 4th, Eric Bischoff, who had recently taken over control of WCW, he fired Jesse Ventura, supposedly for falling asleep during a WCW Worldwide taping. Now, that's what Bischoff maintains. But the real reason everybody thinks is because Hogan had recently come in, and him and Jesse Ventura didn't get along a long-standing feud there because Jesse Ventura was trying to start a wrestling union, and Hogan basically ratted him out to Vince and got it shut down. So ever since then, those two were never on good terms. And then a title change to end the month on August 28th. Two Dudes with Attitudes, which was Shawn Michaels and Diesel, defeated the Head Shrinkers to win the WWF Tag Team titles. So that's a little bit of wrestling. Sorry if that took 12 years to talk about, but definitely a lot of big things happened, especially ECW that month. As a kid, this was definitely a time, and everybody remembers these, and I don't know if they still have them or not, but the Scholastic Book Fair, who remembers those? They would have that once. I can't remember if they had it twice a year. It might have just been once. But they would have it for like a week where they would set up in the library, and it was done by the Scholastic people. And one of their famous things was the Goosebump books. They produced those, or published those, published those, I guess. But they'd have all kinds of stuff at this, and there'd be the staples that everybody would get. The posters with the cars with the girls on them. They obviously wouldn't be dressed too crazy because it was for kids, but they would have posters of cars, and they would have animal posters and stuff. It seemed like all the girls always got like the animal posters. I don't know if they had any specifically for girls, like I don't know, Barbie dolls or stuff like that. I don't like posters, but one of the things and they always had like bookmarks and pencils, but they were like you can buy this pencil for $3. It's like, why? I can just go get a pack of them for the store for like 25 cents for like 10 of them. But one of the other most popular things are those books that would hurt your eyes to look at if you looked at them too long, with like the weird like images, and you got to try, each one you go on further, sort of like a Where's Waldo, where the more you get into the book, the harder it is to find him. Well, in this, it's harder to see the image, and you got to squint your eyes and look at it sideways. Those crazy books. But the thing I remember the most about the Scholastic Book Fair is it was like window shopping for me, because I never had the money to buy anything at this freaking thing. It was always something that every kid looked. It really, looking back at it, it kind of separated people. Like, here's the poor kids, here's the not poor kids, and depending on how much stuff you got, here's the rich kids. So it wasn't always the funnest thing, but it was still, you got out of class for like almost a whole period to go check this stuff out. You got to look at all these books, and then like, man, I really want this. But I don't think I've ever got to buy anything from the Scholastic Book Fair. But guys, let me know if you have kids in school, or did recently, or just know of it. Do they still have the Scholastic Book Fair or anything like that, or is that all like today? Do they just do it all online? I could see now. Okay, kids, log on to Amazon, go look at the books and buy a book. I could see that now. So like, as great as the internet is, and obviously I wouldn't be able to do this without the internet. It seems like it takes a lot of stuff out of the world to do. Kids don't even get off days anymore. You got to log on your computer and do your work there, which, I mean, I guess is a good thing if you have an extended period of time where you're out of school for some reason. But sometimes, it's a snow day. Let the kids have a snow day, and don't make it up unless it's a certain amount are missed. Now it seems they have like 2 days that they don't have to make up, and then the rest they'll do on the computer, or make you make up on a holiday. If it's a holiday, you're not supposed to be at school anyway. I've been talking a lot about the changes in school, it seems like. But some news items. Don't worry, I'm going to get like the stock market was down. Just a few news things. August 11th, a sad thing. Peter Cushing, who is a horror icon, he famous for playing Dracula. I know him best as the poor old guy from the Tales from the Crypt movie, the 1972 British movie. I believe it was the third story, where he was played the neighbor to these rich people, and they wanted him out of there because he was poor. He was a garbage man, and he was always nice to the kids and had all these dogs. Well, they didn't like him because he brought their property value down. So they do a bunch of stuff to try to run him out of town. It don't work. So then they start sending Valentine cards from supposedly everybody in town with like horrible things, telling him to kill himself basically. So he does. But then a year later, he comes back from the dead as a zombie and rips out the guy's heart that does it. Anyway, sadly, he passed away on August 11th. But yeah, That's where I know him most from, is that. But of course, he's iconic as Dracula in other horror movies. August 22nd, DNA evidence was announced that linked OJ to the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. But of course, between the ineptitudes of the prosecutors and the paid-off attorneys, OJ got off. I mean, I'm sure he's finding out now whether he did it or not. You can't fool the man above on that one. But everybody knows my stance on OJ. I've watched countless documentaries, read countless books, watched the trial. I'm 100% convinced he did it. Yeah, there's a lot in there that could be this or that, and we know the stupid idiot racist detective Furman, which probably, along with the prosecutors, I'm not trying to get into the OJ case too much, but between that and the stupid having him put the gloves on when obviously he wasn't gonna, the glove could have shrank some, plus he was gonna act it up. He was an actor after all anyway. That, and the one guy that was at the airport and says he's seen OJ throw a duffel bag away, and the prosecution just didn't call him. Like, it's so frustrating. Of course, he ended up getting arrested later on for robbing people of what he thought was his own memorabilia. But anyway, everybody knows my OJ stuff. One funny note, though. Well, not funny, but interesting note. The very first ever online food order came from Pizza Hut in California. Now, I don't have any details of how this happened. Obviously, it wasn't like DoorDash or that stuff today. Probably just their website, and you could order it, and then they either deliver it or pick it up. Probably just, kind of like now, but like very basic. But yeah, 1994 is when the internet was really trying to kick off, with the AOL days. But we'll go into sports now. 1994, if anybody's a baseball fan, they know August 12th, the Major League Baseball went on strike because of rich players, rich owners, and arguing and whining about what they're owed. So screw the fans, right? Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. It was the second time in history there was no World Series because of the strike. It actually lasted like into the next year, and the 1995 season started almost a month late. But the Reds were in first place by half a game at the time, so who knows what could have been back in 1994. I know in 95 went to the playoffs, so who knows what 94 could have brought, but nobody won it that year. It wasn't until 1998 and the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa home run race that fans really started coming back. It was a down period after that because people just lost interest because of the business getting into the game that they love to watch. Fans don't care about any of that. They just want to see games. They don't care about what side's getting paid this, and they're all getting overpaid anyway. It's meaningless to especially to people that watch the game. Most people that watch the game are just working people. They're not, obviously rich people will watch it too. But the majority of people are just, people just trying to get by. They don't care about, I only got 6 million. I wanted 9. Anyway, NFL was doing their preseason games at the time, and on August 12th, the very first NFL game, which was preseason, premiered on Fox, which is crazy to think now because Fox and CBS are the main the Sunday television stations that show all the games. But it's crazy to think that until 1994, Fox hadn't even shown a game. But of course, back then, Fox was still becoming a full-time network. Like I said, it's crazy to think now, but at one time, Fox was just a little channel that had a few original shows a couple nights a week, and that was it. The rest of the day was just syndication. But in NASCAR, Jeff Gordon won the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Mark Martin won the Bud at the Glen. Love the sponsorship there. At Watkins Glen International Speedway. Jeff Bodine won the GM Goodwrench Dealer 400 at Michigan International Speedway. And Rusty Wallace won the Goodies 500, which was the night race at Bristol. And this was the year that Dale Earnhardt would win his final championship, which was the 7th, which ties Richard Petty for the most wins. And right now we're going to talk about last few weeks I've done the Nickelodeon lineup from the month. This week I'm going to do both the Nickelodeon and the Saturday morning cartoons, because I hadn't done Saturday morning cartoons in a while. So I picked a date in August, and my computer's being slow because I've talked about it before. The website's the Fandom, I think it is. I think it's called Fandom. Yeah, I'm using an ad blocker. Which sucks nowadays. You can't use ad blocker on YouTube, or after 3 times it says that, oh, you can't watch videos anymore or some crap. I forget what it said. Anyway, these sites slow my computer down so much. Anyway, I went back and chose a Saturday in August. I chose August 13th. And we're going to go through the Saturday morning cartoon lineup, which back then was before WB became one of the Saturday morning cartoon players. That didn't even have a network then. It was ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. So we're going to see what the lineups look like on Saturday mornings. We start off with Crow, C-R-O. I don't know if that's a typo or just some cartoon I never heard of. Wild West Cow, Boys of Moo Mesa. Never heard of it. Then at 9 we've got Sonic the Hedgehog, classic cartoon. Of course, Sonic was voiced by Jaleel White from Family Matters. At 9:30, the Addams Family cartoon. Love that one. Then we've got the Bugs Bunny Tweety Show, which is a theme on here. How many different Looney Tune variations can we get? We've got one so far. City Kids, I don't remember that. It kind of sounds like it would be like a teen TV show, but I'm not sure. At noon, Land of the Lost, the 1991 version, not the 70s version I can't stand, but I love that 90s version. First saw it on Nickelodeon. And then ABC Weekend Special, whatever that was. Then on CBS, we've got Marsupilami. Marsupilami? I don't know. I don't know if it's a cross between a marsupial and a salami. I don't know. Disney's The Little Mermaid, which is, of course, based on the movie. And this was, of course, before ABC and Disney merged, so you were seeing Disney stuff on other channels. Later on, it would become ABC, Disney would take over ABC Saturday morning cartoons. Then we got Garfield and Friends for an hour. Classic, can't go wrong with that. Love both parts of it, the Garfield and the Friends on the Farm. Love that. And then we've got an hour of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which, of course, can't go wrong there. Spoiler alert, very high on my list of Saturday morning cartoons. A few of these that I've mentioned are on the list, obviously. But can't go wrong with the Turtles. Then at 11, Dennis the Menace. I love that cartoon. Of course, Dennis the Menace has been around forever. Old black and white TV show from the 50s and was it 50s or 60s? I think it was the 60s. And of course, the movie from the 90s is classic. And then we got Conan and the Young Warriors at 11:30. It seems like as the day progressed, these channels marketed stuff more to teens. Beakman's World, which I never watched, which is sort of like a science show, but I never really watched it. And then CBS Story Break, whatever that was. Then on Fox, we've got Dog City, don't remember that. Thunderbirds, that either. Bobby's World, I think the original cartoon on Fox Kids. I love that cartoon. Eek and the Terrible Thunder Lizards. Okay, I've heard of Eek the Cat. I'm guessing that's the same, but I've never seen that show. And we got Tiny Toon Adventures. Of course, this is before the WB Network, so Tiny Toon Adventures was on Fox. How can you not love that show? And of course, that's part of the Looney Tune universe too. Same with Tasmania. That was a great show. I always remember that being on an afternoon, but it was obviously a Saturday morning cartoon too. X-Men, the animated series, I love that one. I didn't care for any of the X-Men movies and didn't read the comics or anything like that, but the cartoon I loved. And then Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, which was a cartoon version of the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. Everybody remembers that, the computer game, and then later on the game show on PBS. But this is the cartoon version. And then NBC, which has always been known in the later years as the teenage Saturday morning cartoon, even though it wasn't cartoons. We've got Name Your Adventure, which I've looked up before. It's not Choose Your Own Adventure, but it's where people can create adventures. I can't remember exactly how it's done. I looked it up a long time ago. California Dreams, another one of them teen shows. Saved by the Bell, The New Class. I don't think I've ever seen that. I've seen by Saved by the Bell and Saved by the Bell, the college years, but I don't think I ever seen The New Class. Running the Halls, never heard of it. And then NBA Inside Stuff, which I never watched because I wasn't a basketball fan. But that's the Saturday morning cartoon lineup. We're going to flip over to Nickelodeon, and we actually have the whole day on Nickelodeon. So we will see Nick at Night, of course, because we're going for midnight. Nick at Night is on first and then ends the day. We start off with the Bob Newhart Show, which I never watched. Get Smart, I've seen a few times. And Alfred Hitchcock Presents, love that one. That one's, right there, and just like with the Twilight Zone to me. The Adventures of Superman, I barely seen. It was the old Superman show. I believe it had, can't remember, what's his name, George? Christopher Reeve. I think it was George Reeves. I think played Superman in that. Christopher Reeve's father. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. The Lucy Show, which is one of the 3 shows that Lucille Ball did. Those were always funny. Mork and Mindy, I watched a few times. It was just a little weird to me. F Troop, I never really watched. Same with the Dick Van Dyke Show. Bob Newhart again. Get Smart again. Alfred Hitchcock again. Adventures of Superman again. And then at 6 we get to Nickelodeon. We got The Little Bits, which I never watched. Dennis the Menace. So as you see, you could technically watch Dennis the Menace cartoon twice on this Saturday morning. Then at 7 we've got Flipper, and of course I've done my top 50 Nickelodeon shows list, which includes both original Nickelodeon shows and reruns that have been on other networks. But a lot of these are familiar if you've seen that. Flipper, Dennis the Menace, Danger Mouse I never seen, but Doug, one of the original Nicktoons. Next, Rugrats, again another one of the original Nicktoons. Love those cartoons. 9 to 10, Muppet Babies. I know, you're getting tired of hearing me do this stupid intro. But, love Muppet Babies. It was definitely a Saturday morning cartoon originally. Same with Beetlejuice, the cartoon. I've said it before, didn't care for the movie, but loved the cartoon. Then at 10:30, we got Nickelodeon Guts. One of those great Nickelodeon cartoon game shows from the 90s. Guts, the original one, where he had three kids from America. Later on, they'd do Global Guts, where they'd have kids from different countries. But this was one of their first ones, was Nickelodeon Guts. Then Legends of the Hidden Temple. Man, I can't say enough about that game show. It was so rare to see someone actually do the run through the temple and retrieve the item and actually make it out in the 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes went by quick. Hey Dude, love that one. That one's like teenagers working at this ranch during the summer, and it was just a great. It was a comedy, but it was also a little bit of drama. It was kind of a little bit of everything, almost like a Saved by the Bell, but set in the West. Kind of reminded me of Nickelodeon Wild Side Show, which I've never seen, which I think it shows, like this episode says, threats to giraffes, dolphins, coyotes, meerkats, rabies, and raccoons. Obviously, it was a nature show. Then we got Wild and Crazy Kids. Great game show. It was more of a outdoor activity show. There was no, there was teams, but there was no like points or winners or losers. It was just, I've described it in the past as being like Field Day, if you remember that from elementary school. Kind of Field Day meets a game show type thing. Then we've got Looney Tunes on Nickelodeon for an hour. Another Looney Tune variation. A cartoon called Bluey, which is where they showed just a bunch of different cartoon shorts. That was always fun to watch. The Alvin Show, which was the classic Alvin and the Chipmunks from I think the 50s or 60s. This isn't the 80s Alvin and the Chipmunks, which I love. This is that. Then they got a movie, which is only an hour, from 3 to 4, so it was only an hour long. So it wasn't. I don't think it was a full feature movie, or maybe it was, and they just cut a lot out. But The Monster Maker from 1989. I've never heard of that movie. Then back to Nickelodeon shows at 4. We got Nick Arcade. Everybody remembers that. the famous show where you got to actually go into a video game and play a bunch of video games. 4:30 Family Double Dare, my favorite version of Double Dare. I love the family one. I thought it was the perfect amount of people and everything. Yeah, I do like the original one with just the 2 people, but the 4 with the family always, it's the one I watch the most and the one I love the most. Welcome Freshman, I never watched. What Would You Do? That's another great game show, also hosted by Mark Summers, who hosts Family Double Dare. And it was more a variety show than game show. But there was a lot of people getting hit in the face with pies and the pie coaster and all this other stuff. And they would interview people on the streets. It was really. I wish they would put that on so I could watch reruns of that. That show was awesome. The Tomorrow People, I don't have much of memory of at all. Then we got Guts again, Doug and Rugrats again, and of course Saturday night. Everybody remembers it wasn't always on Nickelodeon. It started, I can't remember what year it started, but everybody remembers Snick from Nickelodeon on Saturday nights. Well, this was definitely during Snick's, their biggest time periods. 8 o'clock we got Clarissa Explains It All, which I love that show. Melissa Joan Hart. The Adventures of Pete and Pete I never really got into. I know I've said that before and people are like, what? That's one of the biggest Nickelodeon shows. I know, but I never really got into it. Sorry, I'm looking kind of funny looking at the time. Sorry, I'm taking forever to do this podcast. The Ren and Stimpy Show, which was one of the original 3 Nicktoons, but of course it fit better in the Snick lineup, because obviously that type of humor is just, it's insane to let kids watch that, and if it'd be today's era, they'd be banned for sure. And then 9:30, the show everybody waits for, Are You Afraid of the Dark? My favorite Nickelodeon show of all time. This episode this week was called The Tale of the Phone Police. I remember that one for sure. And then I actually snicked it in there. Extended to 10 o'clock. We got Roundhouse, which was, I can't remember exactly what Roundhouse was, but I do remember the name. It's just, a lot of these shows, if I seen them, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, it's that one. But yeah. We went from Nickelodeon ending right at 8 to go to Nick at Night to Saturday night going to 10 and now even till 10:30. But then Nick at Night takes back over at 10:30. We got the Partridge Family, which I knew who they are, but I never watched it. And then the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour to end the night for Nickelodeon. So that is our Saturday morning cartoon and Nickelodeon lineups. As you see, the one show you could watch twice was Dennis the Menace. But going to talk now, just got a couple more things to talk about. Talk about music, my favorite music being country, of course. The Hot 100, which is an inside joke to my brothers. Everybody knows, they know what the Hot 100 really is. But the Hot 100 is the Billboard charts. The number 1 song, which I'd never heard of in my life, Stay, I Missed You, by Lisa Loeb. I barely recognize the name. And 9 Stories. I don't know if that was a collaboration or that was her band or what, but that was number 1 for 3 weeks, and I've never heard of it in my life. The last week of August, 14-week run at number 1 for Boyz II Men and their massive song, I'll Make Love to You. That was like, I didn't listen to pop music at all then, but I still had heard the song. But that first one, it was number 1 for 3 weeks. Anybody ever heard that? Stay, I Missed You by Lisa Loeb and the 9 Stories. Or 9 Stories, I don't know if it's the in there or not, but anyway, I was listening to country music, as I said. Always listening to the American Country Countdown with Bob Kingsley every Sunday morning from 9 to noon. Usually I was taping them. Number 1 for the first week of August and also 2 weeks prior, so it was 3 weeks at number 1, was Alan Jackson's Summertime Blues, which I heard a couple years later, like the original version, I think it was from the 60s, which you listen to the song, you wouldn't think it's a cover, you just think it was another one of those great Alan Jackson original songs. It was actually a cover, but that song was like everywhere. And then Be My Baby Tonight, John Michael Montgomery, number 1 for 2 weeks. That was definitely one of his bigger songs that wasn't a ballad. And then Dreaming With My Eyes Open by Clay Walker ended the month at number 1. Great song there. And 3 totally different songs. But that was country at the time, You didn't have to fit into a certain mold. You didn't have to be a ballad to be number 1 at this time. As you see, None of them were ballads, and they were number one. But then sometimes if you get a massive ballad, you'd see like number one for like 4 or 5 weeks straight. But an album that was released this month was Patty Loveless's When Fallen Angels Fly. It was her 7th album and was certified platinum. Patty Loveless, a great voice. She can do traditional country and also do a little bit of pop country. Back then, not today's pop country, obviously. Nobody cares about that crap. Sorry. But anyway, all 4 singles released from this were top 10. I only liked one of them, though. I tried to think about Elvis. That song just, for some reason, got on my nerves. Like, I don't know why. It just, anytime that song comes on, I turn the channel, or if I'm on Sirius, and if it's on streaming and I happen to be listening to that, I skip it. But Here I Am, I should say 2 of them. I like Here I Am. I just don't remember it a lot. It's funny, Garth Brooks did an acoustic performance of this on one of his Inside Studio G, his web show he was doing for a while. He did an acoustic performance of this, and I didn't remember the song from the 90s. Some of these songs are number one, and you don't even remember them, which is weird. Which this wasn't number one, but there's been a few that have been. It's like, how do I don't even remember that song? But anyway, I went and listened to her version. It's great. Halfway Down, which I barely remember, I didn't really like. But the one that I love is You Don't Even Know Who I Am. The vocals on that song are just out of this world. And this album was so successful, it won CMA Album of the Year the next year in 1995, which was only the third. She was only the third woman in history to actually win the Album of the Year, which of course mostly went to male artists because, for better or for worse, it seems like the male artists always got more attention. And, I can't say that it was wrong for that, or, they're trying to hold women down. I don't know for sure whether, I don't know the workings of the music industry, but I know my favorites of all time are mostly male, but I'm not saying females aren't good singers, because obviously her voice is amazing. There's been countless, look at Tammy Wynette, Loretta Lynn, countless females that have, been number one and beaten out males for awards. It just seems like, I don't want to get into the politics of music. There's enough of that with the crappy music they got today. So I'll just leave it at that. It's just, the third woman in history win Album of the Year, and definitely wouldn't be the last. We get Shania Twain coming down the pike later on, and Dixie Chicks at the end of the 90s, who would really kind of revolutionize women's music and country. Of course, Shania Twain tried to go too much pop. And of course, I'm leaving out... Sorry, a hiccup. Leaving out Faith Hill there, too. She had massive crossover success, too. But some of my favorite, just like with the male country artists, my favorite female... I can't talk. Favorite female artists have always been the ones that do the country-sounding songs, not the... Oh, we got to make this for the crossover for pop. If you want to do pop, do the pop music. Speaking of pop, Dr. Barry, Dr. Pepper Blackberry. I cannot speak, which is strange because I'm doing a podcast. You'd think I'd learn the basic thing called speaking. But anyway, I am going to do now something completely different. So if you're reached this point of the podcast and you're still with me after all my blah, 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 if you don't know me personally or don't want to know anything about some stuff that I went through as a kid during this time period, you can end the podcast now. Basically, if you're my brothers, continue on. Or anybody that cares. Because I'm going to read a chapter or a little bit from my book that I wrote. It's an autobiography, so it's not like some published thing. Maybe it'll be published someday, but it's kind of like ongoing because I'm still alive. And when I die, someone can write my last chapter. But anyway, some background on this. I started writing this in 2014 during some real low periods in my life, my family's life. A lot of bad stuff going on. I finally finished it in like 2023. Writing off and on. Because I was in college during this time too. And, I got Microsoft Word, so I had something to actually type it on that wasn't a notepad. Because I had to have Microsoft Word for college. Anyway, I just started writing my life story out, and I wanted to go linear, and mostly it is, but there's a lot of jumping around too, because like with this podcast, it just gets jumbled. Anyway, two reasons I wanted to write down. Just one, I just like to have my own story written down. Not that it's remarkable or anybody would even care or read it. Just to have it for me. And two, just I've always been afraid of, especially since my granny died of Alzheimer's disease. Been afraid of like losing some of the memories that I love, and I don't know if I do, and if I read them again, whether it'll bring the memories back or not. But just something to think about for anybody that writing down their life story, so people don't want to remember it. There's a lot of stuff I don't remember, but I wrote it down anyway. Anyway, this chapter is all about Marky Foe, my stepdad, and I've talked about him before, but I just rediscovered this the other day. And I'm going to censor some words on here because I wrote, especially during this time period when I was really angry at the world, I kind of just wrote whatever I wanted, and I'm only going to censor it so that I don't get banned off YouTube, Facebook, or Spotify. But I'm going to start right before Chapter 4 and then read through it. It's, like I said, I don't know if anybody's going to watch this part of it or not, or listen to this part of it or not, but anyway, I might give some comments in here, but it says, back to my story now. So what did I break for to talk about? Oh, it was something else I'm not going to talk about actually on video. If you ever read the book, you'll see it, but I'm not going to talk about that on video. But it said Mark, which was we call him Marky Foe for some reason. I always say I don't remember why we started calling him that, but his name was Mark. He was our stepdad, abusive. But said Mark decided to buy Dorothy's house, which was our neighbor Dorothy. She died. She had Alzheimer's disease too, and we lived next to her. But he couldn't wait till she was dead to go buy her house. It said decided to buy Dorothy's house. He actually made me go out in the middle of the night and remove the for sale sign in her yard, and this is true. I said, I swear I have not been as scared to this day as I was that night. I was afraid Dorothy would get me for stealing her house. It's around this time that Mark started to show his true colors, and that's kind of the lead into this chapter. I don't even remember. I haven't even read this, so I'm just going to read this. And Marky Foe, as I will call him from now on, and I'll explain later if I did, was a effing fat-ass drug-using wife and child abuser. Boy, was I mad. Plain and simple, he would spend so much time in the bar that we were home a lot by ourselves. Now, we did not mind that. In fact, it got so bad that we lived for the days when him and Mom would go to the bar, or those Fridays when he would work late. Put it this way, when we found out he worked on Saturday or had a really late night, it was the highlight of our week. And that's absolutely true. This MFer, like I said, I'm trying to censor for this, did so many horrible things. So many that I've decided to change directions in my book. It's mine, and so I can do it. LOL. Yes, I put LOL in a book. That's how you know it'll never get published. Anyway, I'll now make a list with comments of what we endured. And some of these are not so funny, even though I'm kind of laughing at what I wrote. He broke our mom's leg in a drunken rage at the bar. Obviously not funny there. After his dad's funeral, he headbutted Mom, giving her a concussion. So I go from super serious to this. He pissed the bed. Yes, this technically was not against us, but damn, he was effing 40 years old and pissed the bed. Which I'd forgotten about. He literally peed the bed so freaking much that it was completely stained, and like there's times you can see it dripping through, because there's times he lived, like they just decided to, or he decided, because Mom never get to decide anything because this freaking control freak. Anyway, decided to move downstairs and sleep on the fold-out couch instead of sleeping upstairs in bed for some reason. Maybe because he can get to the closet. We had like a little closet with like just a toilet in it. You can tell it was added on, but anyway, you can sometimes see the pee dripping underneath it, like after it was disgusting. This one, if my head was shaved, my hair's too freaking long as it is, you could actually see, but he broke a plate over my head. He said I was holding it up over my head and threatening him with it. So I was holding the plate, I was doing dishes, and I was apparently holding a plate this high and threatening him. But by the way, this guy was like 6'6", and I was 10 years old, so yes, I was threatening him. Anyway, he said I was holding up over my head, threatening him with it when he kicked it. Okay, MFer, your fat ass really thinks you can kick that high. So this stuff, I hope you guys are watching, especially Josh. I hope you guys listening to this. This one. I don't know if I should read this one. I guess I will, and just being honest. He held me down on the steps and beat me with his fist repeatedly as I cried and begged him to stop. I actually said, "I'm sorry, Dad," which I hated calling him. Made us call him Dad. I hated. I actually said, "I'm sorry, Dad. Don't beat me. I love you." Says, "Oh God, do I look back at that moment of weakness with so much disgust for myself." Okay, this is a really sick one. He made us stand with our arms straight out. Oh, no, this isn't the sick one yet. Straight out for hours, no matter how much it hurt. That sucked. Like, I'm not just talking a few minutes, like, until we couldn't do it anymore, and then he would, like, beat us if we couldn't do it long enough. We also had to hold cans on our outstretched arms for hours, which I know people have used that as punishment forever, but not for hours. Here's the sick one. The most humiliating of these punishments is when I had to stand with my arms out, while Josh had to stand with his nose in my ass with his arms out. I guess this was to satisfy Marky Foe's gay side. I don't know. Yeah, that's beyond anything. There's no way that can be defended. That, obviously we had clothes on, but still, you don't make a kid put his nose in another kid's butt and as some kind of punishment and even justify that as not being completely disgusting. He had a van he slept in sometimes. That was later on after his loud car he called the sled. He had a van he slept in sometimes that we said was filled with slime, and I'll let you figure out what slime was, because he was always in there by himself. And anyway, I'll just leave it at that. He also had the first they're talking about the sled. The first car we've seen him with was called the Sled. The car was old and was the loudest effing car I've ever heard. One big plus was you could always hear him when he was coming home. This is important because we only went outside when he wasn't home, meaning we were never allowed outside, and that's 100% true. We were never allowed outside. The only times we ever went out there is when he wasn't home. So unless he wanted us to help him with landscaping, which was always horrible because if we messed up, we got hit. That was the worst. Whenever he had some project he wanted to do, like, we didn't hand him the exact right screw or tool, he just hit us. But it was so bad that when my mom called Marky Foe's dad to tell him what his son was doing, his dad said, "You probably deserved it," and that's 100% true. And then I put effing juice chewer. Yes, I said juice chewer, which leads me to the next chapter. I'll call it part 1 of my characters, and I'll read this one, then I'll be done because this one's funny. Chapter 5, Section Avenue Characters, which is where we lived in Norwood. Juice Chewer. And it's funny, he didn't even live on Section Avenue, he's just one of the characters from then. Juice Chewer, Marky Foe's dad. We called him this because no matter the consistency, he always chewed his orange juice. Whether it had pulp in it or was just liquid, he was always, you see them old people always moving their mouths like they're chewing something. Well, he looked like he was like eating some well-done steak when he was chewing his orange juice. Aunt Dickie, Marky Foe's sister-in-law. I don't even remember writing about her. We actually had no problem with her, but as kids, the name sounded funny. Her name was Vicky, but we called her Dickie because we're immature idiots. Like I said, no problem with her. It was, ooh, you say Dickie, we're cussing now. Big man. His real name was Brigham. He was our neighbor and Marky Foe's best friend he did drugs with. Pooh, Brittany, and Vesta. These were Big Man's daughters and niece. We played with them next door. The funniest memory was that they had a trampoline, and no matter what we were playing, I always snuck in their backyard, jumped on the trampoline, and then ran. I've told that before. It's always Mike's, like, we'd do something, hide and go seek, tag, some other stuff, and I would just use an excuse. Like, I'd be trying to go after the people in tag, and instead I just go in the background and jump on trampoline until I got caught and told to stop. Vesta's mom was so lazy, instead of getting out of the car to use the bathroom, she just pissed her pants in the car, and that was true. She would literally just sit there. It wasn't like she was handicapped at all. She would just sit there song and then just all of a sudden pierced. I was like, I did it again, you hear from the car. She pissed herself again. Billy. I don't know his real name, but he was the neighbor across the street and always said, "Your mama looking good tonight." He literally did. We always call him Billy Billy. Pot, Marky Foe's fat friend. That's all I have for that one. Why are you dogs whining? You want to be on there? Nicole, Pot's daughter and our babysitter. It's because of her leaving the tape of Coming to America from one of her babysitting times that we discovered the funniest movie of all time, and that is 100% true. Thanks to her leaving that tape, we got to see that great movie. Fish Face, Pot's wife, named Rita, who had an uncomfortably ugly-ass fish face. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my own writing. Uncomfortably ugly-ass fish face. Oh, geez. So this is the mood I had to have been in to write this stuff so sarcastically. Rick, Pot's son, who we played with when we were over there. He was nice, but now he's a wannabe gangster. At least the last time I checked was, I don't know. Brandon B., Rick's cousin and our friend. He would come over and dance to Billy Ray Cyrus in some weird idiot dance when he rubbed his belly. I told that one before. He was nice. I know, I'm reading the line before. The kid was like 8 with a bigger mustache than grown men. And he was like completely white, but had this 90-year-old Chinese dad, and his mom was like 40. It's a weird family. Darnell, Brandon's fat mom. Larry, Brandon's bum stepdad. He actually lived with us for a while in our basement on the couch and stole from us like the bum he is. And then Chinese dad. It was just Brandon's dad. He was like 90 and half dead. Just some of the stuff I wrote. Welcome to Rallies. This is what we said when we got home in kickball. It was a Rallies burger wrapper that served as home plate. And I've told before, you have to say welcome to Rallies when you get home in order to score, or your score don't count. Tom or Bill or whoever the F you are, the neighbor behind us. Oh, I remember him. He once gave me 20 boxes of cookies to give to everyone in the neighborhood. F that, I ate every single last one of those MFers. I remember that. He was a nice neighbor behind us, behind this big wooden fence. I guess he felt sorry, and he had, I don't know if he worked somewhere or just got, he got this big thing of cookies. I was supposed to give them out to everybody, but I hit them and ate them all. Jeez, I wonder why I am the way I am now. Thank you, Tom or Bill, or... See, we couldn't remember whether his name was Tom or Bill or whatever. That's what we just called it. Crazy bitch from Leprechaun down the street. It's funny as I read this, like, who am I talking about? Oh, yeah, that person. Crazy neighbor that was friends with Marky for years and all of a sudden pulled a shotgun on him for no reason. Like, literally. They were friends, and then all of a sudden, she just pulls out a shotgun on him. And this was before he was, like, abusive, so it wasn't like she was, like, trying to stick up for us. So she reminded me of the old grandma from Leprechaun 2 that says, "Get out of here" to the hearse tour. She does, "Get out of here, we don't need none like you." I don't know what this woman's... She might have just lost her mind or something. Mrs. Benjamin, Norwood View secretary that lived on the corner. She ended up having a permanently broken leg for some reason. That's all I remember is like her leg was like broken for years and years and years. Dale Road drive-thru. It was a drive-thru store on Dale Road owned by Iraqis. I guess they were from Iraq. I don't know. They had quarter pops and quarter chips. I talked about this last week, actually, on the podcast. This is when Doritos had deployed points that we were trying to save up to get a trampoline. We had over 200 points that we lost when we moved because they were Marky Foe's dad's car. Also, I went in to get a loaf of bread, which they described as a loaf of bed. Which is literally, I just talked about all that same exact stuff last week. That's strange. And Dale, kid that used to be our friend until he stole Josh's orange bike. I remember that well. Oh gosh, should I tell this about... Josh, if you're listening, here we go. And I will save the rest for next time. So that reminds me of another thing. Josh's death parade of animals. A death parade is what we called the dead bodies in Friday the 13th movies, when the victim would seem to run into everyone Jason killed all at once near the end of the movie. Anyway, Josh seemed to kill animals, or at least had bad luck with them. I don't think he literally, like some of them killed. It was just stuff we made up as a kid. Anyway, this started with our hamster in Mount Carmel, Gonzo. He was playing baseball with it and killed him with a baseball bat. Yeah, Young Josh was a little crazy there for a while. Another hamster he let free, as he did an iguana, let free, and then they just got away. We never seen him again. Our weenie dog Larry, he did the Stone Cold Stunner to Larry. He bit Josh's face. I remember that so well. He did the stunner. Bit the crap out of him. I can see my dog Chili doing that right now. That's the one that always cracks me up. Finally, our cat Spot was found dead in the road. Now, this is a huge controversy in our family. I had seen Josh the night before playing with him by the window. And me and Travis swear to this day that Josh threw him out the window, but Josh denies it. I doubt he threw him out the window. Because even if he had, looking back at the trajectory of it and everything, he would have either, even if he would have jumped off the porch, it's not like he would have jumped in the way of a car. Because, like I said, we played kickball in that street as a kid. So that shows you that there was traffic, but we would stop anytime it came through. But at night, there were really the odds of him throwing a cat off the porch and then going past the roof, hitting the ground, and then a car hitting at the same time. Now that I think about it as an adult, it's like, how? But me and Travis were so convinced, like, Josh killed the cat. He did it on purpose. Although I do remember one time, Josh was out on the roof. This was like after the cat incident. And he told Marky Fo he was sleepwalking. He actually believed it, but then he admitted he wasn't sleepwalking and got in trouble. It's like, the idiot believed your dumb story that you're sleepwalking on the roof. Like, he wasn't sleepwalking. He was just, I don't know what he was doing out there. Maybe he was trying to figure out how that cat died. Anyway, if you guys want me to read any more of these personal things later on, there's more stuff about Marky Fo and other stuff and stuff about wrestling. Maybe I'll read a little bit of it at a time. Maybe not every episode, just something different. This episode didn't have a ton of things to talk about, so I wanted to kind of add some of that stuff at the end. Sorry for laughing at my own stuff. It just brings back funny memories. And as you've seen, there was some serious stuff going on at the time, but nowadays my output on it is, it happened in the past, it's over, and I'm just going to find humor in the humorous stuff, and the sad stuff really doesn't get me down anymore. I've gotten past that, and I guess that's the ultimate way you can get victory over child abusers, is to just, show them that what they did didn't work. You're better than that, and you're not going to go out and do what they did. So hopefully there's a little bit of personal information on me there on this 90s podcast, but it did happen at this time period, so it is relevant. It's not like I'm trying to make a court case. Relevancy, Your Honor. But anyway, next episode we'll be back with episode number 31. We're going back the year before to March of 1993. This will be our fourth trip through 93. The last time was episode 15, so, half of, 16 episodes ago. 9 years old at the time, in third grade at Norwood View Elementary. I'd been there for a couple months. It was after we moved to Norwood, when we were still moving in that house next to the one where we bought it from the dead woman with Alzheimer's disease. The house right next to the old leprechaun lady. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. A little bit different there at the end. If you watch to the end, I might clip part of this off and just make my own video of this, just to tell some funny stuff. Anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Stews.
Tales from the 90s never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins, where every tale begins. Tales from the crypt, marathons, wrestling wars.